mistake. MTSS is whole school reform. And so if you're implementing MTSS and it doesn't feel like whole school reform, quite honestly, you're probably not doing it right. There's something that's missing, or your school is just functioning so well, it seems like no big changes are necessary. So I guess that's a distinct possibility as well. I always like to mention is that MTSS is like mountain climbing. You need not just one team, a support team on your way up, but you need support teams along the way, maybe people to bring in extra supplies. You need a logistics team to help you plan out the route, a technical assistance team. You might need a medical assistance team, and that might be considered more like your tier three team. So we need all of these people, and it takes time to coordinate that. And I hear a lot of people out there coming to me and saying, like, oh, we're doing MTSS now, but we don't have our team set up. We basically have a database and a data system to collect universal data, but we don't have any protocols in place. Can you help us with that? I say, well, then you're not really doing MTSS yet, but you're planning, you're emerging in your ability to implement MTSS. So this is just a reminder that MTSS is a process, a framework that takes time. It's not something that's going to be implemented overnight just because you do put in one of these teams in place. It requires everyone working together. And because of that, a traditional top-down process is not, doesn't work. I'm just going to say it, it doesn't work. A collaborative leadership approach, a distributed leadership approach does work. And that's what we've seen time and time again. And I get a lot of questions around how do we build commitment? How do we build buy-in from our staff? You do that with a distributed leadership approach and by having the right teams so that everyone feels included in the process. We have a lot of problems and a lot of challenges facing us in this process. We call them, from the research part perspective, we call them barriers, right? Implementation science would consider these barriers. We have, and all of these features here on your screen, we have either too much or too little. We have a history of the pendulum going back and forth, and so people not really earnestly jumping into a specific practice because they said, well, this too shall pass, right? So we don't really have to invest in the work. Oftentimes, there's not been enough trust established. Recently, I heard from a colleague that they've had five principals in 8 years. So trust and leadership go hand in hand. If you don't have consistent leadership, it's hard to establish trust across the staff so that everyone feels safe trying something new. And then, of course, we have our resources that are always a struggle to pull together, whether that be personnel and a lack of substitute teachers, or having to let go of instructional aides because we don't have the funding for that, or we no longer have an after school program, etc. The list goes on and on. And of course, the external contacts with state and federal demands on our system. So we have all of these problems that are really, frankly, not setting us up for success. And the way to make sure that your school is doing everything you can, optimizing the resources that you have, the knowledge and the talents of your staff, is by doing MTSS and doing it well. And that means being thoughtful about that approach and taking your time with that approach as well. So, a part of the MTSS implementation network and a part of this presentation is I consider these my, foundational deliverables to you. That one, you'll know about the four essential MTSS teams. You will get examples and will be aware of the teaming structures and the purpose of each of those teams. This is something that people are missing. So I definitely want to make sure you understand that each of these teams have distinct purposes. And that, onto the next one there's communication and improvement cycles. So those teams are talking with each other and not just haphazardly, but there's actually a plan for consistent sharing of information, consistent sharing of data, consistent sharing of needs, maybe training needs, coaching needs. And that finally their purposeful teams create the foundations for effective and sustainable MTSS. So I just keep on going back to this. If you don't have these teams in place, you're not doing MTSS. If you, this is one of my pet peeves, if you have an intervention team, a student study team, maybe you call it an intervention assistance team, and you're calling that your MTSS team, you are doing the whole system a disservice, and it is maintaining the status quo of siloed systems, of special ed and intervention staff doing everything they can to support those kids that are needing more support at tier two, tier three, and it maintains grade level teachers thinking that it's not a part of their job or role to support those students within their classroom. So please consider shifting their thinking and looking at your teams to understand, do you have a leadership team in the first place that's overseeing MTSS leadership and implementation? These teams, specifically the leadership team at the district level and at the school level, are there to help reduce stress in teachers and in your school leaders to increase the leadership capacity. So it's not just resting on the shoulders of one leader, of one MTSS coordinator. It's these teams are there to foster the group commitment so that you are building buy-in, you are building commitment around a common goal that's based on data. Ooh, doesn't that sound good? Gives me chills. Uh, and then finally, that you're building these structured for lasting change and that these changes can sustain and weather all the external demands that we have on our system. As you listen to information and as you get information and considering how your MTSS framework works in your school and your district, I want to encourage you to think about, first of all, do you even have a leadership implementation team? And, who's on the team? How many people? How often are you meeting? What is the purpose of this team? And is that purpose commonly shared and acknowledged? And even are there reminders throughout the school year to say, oh, yeah, this is our purpose. Let's stay focused on that. Are there specific data sources and tasks that that team is looking at? And what and how does that team communicate with the other teams, with the tier two team, with the intervention teams? How are those teams communicating? Here are our four essential MTSS teams. First of all, leadership implementation. This should be at the district level and at the school level. We have our tier two intervention and coordination team. We have our tier three intervention and coordination team. And then we have our grade level and department level teams, depending on what level you're at, if you're at an elementary school or if you're at a secondary level. So the leadership team, though, if we, continue this theme of MTSS as mountain climbing, the leadership team is that team at base camp, that team that's really providing the strong foundation, including administrative authority, whoever is representing it at that time, faculty voices from maybe upper levels, lower grade levels. It will include also some of the specialists, people who have information and expertise in behavior, social emotional wellness, as well as the academic interventions and the data systems that you're using so that you can, as a team, review those data throughout the school year. This is a list of just some of the tasks and purpose of the leadership implementation team. And this is really just like beginning of the year stuff. So this team uh, it might be hard to just get everything done if you're only meeting once a month. And so I recommend having a core leadership team and then work groups that bring in more people to focus on some of these sub areas like literacy, math, social emotional wellness. So first of all, we will establish the purpose of the team, who's on the team, etc. Review the professional learning calendar and make sure that that learning calendar, those coaching efforts are all in alignment with your MTSS framework. If they're not, then it's a chance to readjust, to reevaluate, because you really want to be training everyone and supporting everyone for this common vision of implementation of MTSS. Review those communication plans with your MTSS different teams and make sure that everyone knows how to access resources, how to access data systems, how to get additional support around all of those components, and then establish those smaller work groups because it really is too much work for just one team. This leadership implementation team is also going to focus on fidelity and choosing a fidelity tool to monitor the implementation efforts. And this actually means checking in with the adults and saying, are we building out the systems for MTSS? Many schools are not using an MTSS fidelity tool. There are loads of measures out there. If you're a part of the MTSS implementation network, we have a whole resource folder with a bunch of fidelity measures that I've gathered that are vetted, that are from research-based agencies, states, departments of education that are informed by research or that are validated and have been shown to be technically adequate with research. So there's a lot of great options out there. Leadership implementation, it is a balancing act. You want to have the right number of people there. You want to have the right voices that are represented around the table, but you also need to be looking at data. If your team is not looking at data, then you are missing one of the foundational principles of MTSS. So just to keep this short, we'll end this here. But if you're interested in getting more support throughout the year, MTSS really doesn't have to be so overwhelming. Join us in the implementation network and join us for monthly sessions that are like this, but more have other folks who are discussing their implementation, giving each other feedback, and we'd love to see you in there. So go team.